everyone and all present. On the behalf of IML community, I would like to welcome Krishnan Subramanian, the founder of Yellowbag Foundation. He's a BSc in computer science graduate, and he did two masters, one in masters in bank management, and then he pursued MBA. And he also have a corporate career of 10 years in different companies like HCL, ICICI, and Amazon. Yellowback Foundation has been approximately 7 years old, manufacturing cloth bags. The Yellowback has a workforce that comprises mainly of women from economical vulnerable communities. So that in this way, is not only empowering but also providing a unique job and making them financially independent. Today, we would like to get get to know more about the journey as an entrepreneur. So we would like to start the podcast with the first question. What is the philosophy of life, Krishnan, for you?
Actually, it evolves, Chair. I don't say that I stick on to the whole life in one philosophy, right? There's always some learning happening. There's always a point where your existing learning gets challenged, confronted. So yes, I started with one particular philosophy of, or I would say one worldview, right? But I'm happily going through a lot of changes in that worldview over the period, right? But there are a few things which we will discuss as we proceed, right? But to call the top of everything, I think one philosophy I strongly go with is life on Earth is a common thing for all of us, right? So I believe that we as a species, or me as a species, that have to live a life in balance with everything else in the world. Okay, that I keep as a non-negotiable. Right, everything else with learning changes.
Yeah, Krishnan. So I'd like to ask people when they have a good job in hand, earning good pennies, they don't prefer to risk or they like to, be on that stable path. But what drove you to, that entrepreneurial route, quitting your corporate job and switching to creating an organization like Yellowback?
I can say three things, right? Uh, One is after I became a father, right? I actually started looking at the world beyond my comfort zone, right? Because that is the point where we are introducing a next generation to the world where we live now, right? I happen to see pollution in a different perspective, right? I kind of noticed how I am contributing to the pollution, right? So there are two options. One is to just keep talking about it, and another is to act on it, right? I also believe that the skills, the knowledge, or whatever exposure I have gained, right, all these years, is not only my effort. It's actually an effort of a lot of people around me, my community, my people around me, right? And I believe that that skill set has to be useful to the larger community and not just to one person or one family, right? So that is where an interesting marriage happened. Like I wanted to I started looking at how can I act for the pollution, for well, no, not really pollution alone, for all the human efforts that is actually not making the planet very sustainable, right? So how can I act positively in countering that, and how do I use my limited skills for the benefit of it? Though these two things are primary, right? I think another thing which actually made me to jump is I always wanted to come back to my city, right? I always wanted some reason so that I can come back to my city, Madurai, right? So ever since I went out of the city to do my post graduation, the thought always is how do I come back. So my forefathers, if you could see, like I belong to an language based minority group called Saurashtrians, and my forefathers have moved to the city like 300 years back, right? And we are totally kind of feel pretty native to the city, and we feel now all the emotions for the city. So I wanted to come back to the city and be of good use to Madurai, right? So all these things put together at one interesting point in life, right? You can't really say no at a point. You just have all the right things in place for you to move from one comfort zone to another thing. And that happened somewhere in 2014 when I was reasonably completing around 10 years of corporate career, right? And I was just a young father. I thought that is a good opportunity to move on, and I moved on, Lansu.
That's great to know. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, rather become a social entrepreneur. So, what motivated you to start Yellowbag Foundation? What made you think that you should come up with an idea like Yellowbag Foundation?
See, again, maybe that idea got rooted in me as I was growing up in Madurai, right? So, Madurai, I have noticed a lot of sustainable actions which I never knew at that point, right? When I was growing up, very small things like the city is otherwise famous for Sungudi saris, right? Which is a cotton hand woven and naturally, which was originally natural dyed, and a lot of intrinsic people work involved in making it, right? And this was very successful, even positioned against silk saris, right? Silk, even if you say, cause some harm in to the silkworms, right? But cotton as a production and cotton-based fabric as a production is not that harmful to the environment, right? So I have seen such things happening in the city, in my city Madurai, and I have also seen that those things were going up. We were fast giving up. Right at that time when I used to travel across the river, the Vaigai is a primary river in the city, and when I cross that, I have seen a lot of common washing stations. Right now, common washing stations is a big boon that we talk about to in sustainable cities. If we are growing, developing new sustainable cities, we talk about common cooking spots, common washing areas, right? To utilize less water and all. Those things were very kind of the thing or very normal things as I saw it when I was growing up, right? So these things actually motivated me that the larger change, if we have to bring, right, larger change cannot be just limited to one company or one corporate. A larger change, if it has to come, it has to be a movement. It has to be a lot of people working together. It cannot be one man's mission. It can be a one man's mission which further gets spread and kind of follow a kind of emotionally connected to a lot more people. And I believe the social enterprise is fundamentally works on that principle, right? My understanding of starting a social enterprise is I believe that a social enterprise, the business idea in a social enterprise is not the businessman's idea, right? It's not the idea of the founder alone. It's the idea which is which he might be passionate about. In my case, I was passionate about introducing cloth bags, but I wanted to call myself a social enterprise because my idea is to transfer this passion to a lot of people, right? So that is best done in a social enterprise model. That's why I chose that model.
So probably driving forces accompany you when you have the right intent, and also when you look back to your roots, you get various ways maybe to help you along this path. As you mentioned, you saw what things happening in Madurai and you came up with an idea. Krishnan, I'd like to ask that you had worked in corporate world as well. You're now working with a different set of local community, right? So, what is the difference that you notice in the working behavior of both types of people, may it be the corporate type or the people that you are working with now? Because you chose working or handling people of a different set, a different community. So, what is the basic difference that you notice?
Actually, a lot. Uh, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I have come to a stage where I have actually realized or actually started recognizing the fact that the way a small low-income community wants to work is way different from the way in which the larger business ecosystem makes them work. Right. A short example is I work with low-income communities, the women in low-income communities. One of the major challenges that I noticed is they want to work closer to home, as close to home, next street, next house, or maybe a maximum of 500 meters walkable distance. Right. Now this boils down to a lot of social and responsibilities that they have at home. Okay, as women play a significant role in the care economy, which is otherwise not really translated to economy, not in monetary terms. So balancing that and participating in labor economy, that is a very unique challenge that women in low income communities face. The existing system, the existing businesses, corporates give them a good solution in terms of transporting them from somewhere to some other place and giving them an work opportunity there, right? But over my work, I've realized that they don't actually want to want to be transported. They want something to be there right at home or closer to home, right? Unfortunately, the management systems which has evolved, right, over the last 100 years or so, is all centered towards mass manufacturing, right? How do you put people in one place, put machines and everything in one place and mass manufacture? Whereas if you look at the way humanity has evolved, it has always been a distributed manufacturing. It's not mass manufacturing, it is manufactured by masses, right? Even if you take the cloth bag that we do, it is not supposed to be manufactured in one big factory, right? It's rather to be manufactured at every corner of the street, every street, right, by some one woman stitching at every corner in every street, right? Now this total approach to work, right, to work and workplace, right, that I see is a major gap which the existing business systems have to catch up with humanity, right? So how people want to work, right, versus how companies have to get work done, seems to be a big divide, right, especially in low income communities, Lanso.
Like achieving growth and being sustainable at the same end has been one of the biggest trade-offs that maybe companies or organizations look for. So maybe can you shed some light on why you feel that being sustainable is very important in today's time, in like sustainable in terms of environmental wise, and what impact has the Yellowbag Foundation created in terms of encouraging people to be, let's say, more environment friendly?
To answer the first part, so growth versus sustainability is quite a challenge, right? I'm not going to say that I have cracked it or there is a clean way for it. No, it's going to be a challenge. It has always been a challenge. I mean, like 7 years into building a social enterprise, I still see this as a day zero for me, right? I don't think that I have crossed the first stage. I would boil it down a lot to the mindset of the person, of the leadership, right? In my case, I would credit or discredit it a lot to my own mindset, right? Because the world expects you to travel in a particular direction, right? Get married, get settled, and from there you want to some idea bug hits you and you want to travel in a different direction, and that world might not, in my case, did not have someone walking ahead of me, right? There are a lot of people walking in different directions there, but I couldn't find an exact person whom I can follow or so, right? Is growth required is a question which I actually was digesting in the first few years of my thing, right? Is small is beautiful? In that case, what is small, right? What is beautiful? What is growth? What is sustainability? What is sustainable growth, right? These are the questions which took me a lot of time for me to kind of assimilate, right? But after a point, I got a clarity that to move a large section of our people towards sustainability, right? Yeah, we cannot start explain an ideal and then say, hey, come everybody, let's go there. No, not possible, right? It has to be done in various steps, right? People though there is a greater climate disaster waiting at our doorstep, right, people would only want to move one step at a time, right? People would not want to jump directly to the 10th step or 11th step. So now I come to a reality that growth can happen if we can stage our efforts towards sustainability, right? Small examples like when we wanted to work with cloth bags, right? We took a stand that we will do only high quality cloth bags which will never kind of turn off, right? But would come at a very significant price, right? But people are only wanting to move away from plastic bag, from a free bag to maybe a 10 rupee bag, right? So my solution, which is otherwise 200 rupees, is not going to help people take the step number one, right? So we realized growth can happen when we help people take one step at a time, right? So to do that, we will have to work with all the existing, say, companies, existing players, right? Whereas if I had kept only the ideal destination as my goal, right, then I had actually shut my door for any existing player to come and work with me, right? These are some learnings which happened, and then I had to realize that I've actually shut my doors. So then I have to open up the doors. Then after I open up the doors, I saw that opportunities are abundant, right? So it's a very personal question, Ramshal and Shaw, when we talk about growth and how do we manage sustainability?
Okay, so we are, it's a very great that you still believe that it's a day zero for you after spending 7 years in social entrepreneurship and 10 years in corporate. My question is, we all know that organization is built of employees. So you worked with local communities. So do you agree that these local community also play a very important role when it comes to environment conservation?
There's a World Bank data in 2020, which says close to 132 million people will be forced to extreme poverty by 2030, right? That is not because of anything else, but only because of climate change, right? That's a new large number of people who will be moving into poverty, right? Now the very interesting part is climate change affects people economically, in terms of human rights, in terms of health. Okay. When it comes to health, human right, and economic ability, it's generally the low income which actually gets affected a lot, right? For example, climate change has made temperature, even within our own houses, right? The temperature is very variable. I mean, like, very bad these days. So, would the low income communities have the resources to maintain temperature in their house? Big challenge, right? Most of the food that comes out, we are transferring into a packaged food kind of an behavior, right? And most importantly, inorganic food is taken over a lot, right? So, will the low income have the right to climb good, healthy food? So across all these things, right, across food, clothing, and shelter, right, climate is going to affect all these three things, and the low income is going to be the most affected in these three things, right? But sadly, if you look at the reason for climate change, they play actually a very small percentage when we talk about who is responsible for climate change, right? So, so the low income communities, the smaller communities, are actually they played a very small or negligible role in this catastrophe. But if you look at who is actually solving the problem, right, starting from the waste picker who is actually segregating the waste that we throw off, to the farmer who is burning his fingers and trying organic farming, right? All these are people from the low income or low economical backgrounds, right, who is actually trying to solve the climate crisis, who are the forefront players in when it comes to climate change, right? When it comes to negotiating climate change. So it's quite a strange spot where a person who is not responsible for the problem is will become a victim for it, right? And he, on another hand, is actually helping everybody around to not to be a victim in it, right? uh, so so how do you really actually call them, the small communities which are fighting for reduction in climate change? They are actually equal to God, in my opinion, right? You do something which you don't really take the credit for, or you are not costed. You just do it because you do it, right? So yeah, a lot more reports or data is going to come up on this particular topic, right? How climate change is going to impact marginalized communities, right? Which is going to be an eye opener for all of us here.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite sad to hear this. Uh, I'll jump back to our previous discussion a bit. We discussed that you came to generally when people open startups or their companies, they try to be in a location which is accessible and also visible to more people, right? Uh, people would prefer Bangalore if they have a tech-based startup, something like this. But you very unconventionally chose to be to open a startup in your community. So was it actually because you wanted to be close to your community, or you wanted to offer them something back, or was it because you identified certain set of resources that you thought, yes, this will be handful in your goals ahead or milestones ahead that you'll be following to the making of the organization?
I'm happy that you asked. I've not given it a very serious thought earlier, but I think the very first thing that comes to my mind is, yes, there is a lot of reasons, a lot of strategic or a lot of logical reasons towards it. But I think it's an emotional decision. It's if you ask me where I am very happy, I am very happy in Madurai, right? So given a choice to move anywhere in the world, where would I move? I would move to my native, where I know I will be happy, right? So that is reason number one. uh, and I always believed that location is not a constraint, right? The bestest of best thinking, the writers that I know of, the legendary writers that I know of, are not from major cities, right? And if you really look at the impact that one person, one writer would have done to the world, it is quite significant, right? So maybe the model that we are all taught with. See, I'm also an if you call business student, right? But the model which I was thought of does not actually recommend that as an rational. At least when I was studying, right? It was on harvesting opportunities, right? So where you can harvest opportunities, you can harvest opportunities in metros where it is abundant. But I think internally you will actually harvest a lot of opportunities if you are actually personally happy doing something, right? And Madurai as a city has a lot of potential, which earlier only an insider like me knew. Now most of Tamil Nadu and the rest of the world is also getting to know that though it is not industrialized in industrialization terminology, but this is one of the earliest culture in the world. Okay. So humanity had thrived here for like thousands of years, right? And so the local wisdom that one could tap into, right, in smaller cities is phenomenal, right? I don't know how much of local wisdom I had tapped. I have lived in Bangalore, I have lived in Chennai. I don't know how much I tapped into the local wisdom, right? But of course, I was an alien there. I was an outsider there. But the amount of local wisdom that I could tap in when being in a city which I knew the best, right, is phenomenal, right? The last 7 years, whatever I have learned, right, starting from raising cotton as a crop to making fabric to understanding the market to understanding how the global business works, it is all from very local people, right? So when the world, when we actually realize the world is flat, maybe say I think 20 years back or so, right? The Tamil community has realized it like centuries back, right? We have kind of established sea routes across the world, right? So that is there. I mean, that must be there in every community. Right? That must be there in every community, how small that can be or how large that can be. So I think accessing those things are the pivoting points in these days. It's not accessing to the same management lessons that we have taught, that we have now learned in the post-industrialization phase. I think the post-industrialization phase is going to slow down. It has to slow down because it is a finite world and it is based on the theory of you can exploit as much as possible, right? So the exploitation of resources have to stop, and the world will actually start looking at everything from a new day zero, right? And from that perspective, I strongly believe everyone has a local connect to the place where we are born, right? And that is the best place where we are naturally tuned to be in our best. Okay, long philosophy. I think that is a philosophy you asked in the first question, but I'm answering late. Yeah, but those are the actual reasons. Those are the actual reasons. I can just for the reasoning stake, I can list it up with things like tailoring is done here. I know people here, right? It's been like I know of cloth bag being manufactured here for like many years. Accessibility to cotton. All these things are rationals I can build. but the real answer is whatever I gave before.
I think it's how you see and perceive things, right? So you took you saw opportunities in even this small state, and you came up with your vision, your ideas, and gave it to the community. So building on this, uh, for the young entrepreneurs in the house who will be listening to you, what according to you, what role does a dream, an ambition, a goal, lay in the like as a what role does it play in building you, in developing you, or maybe having you at that stage at where you are currently? So what roles do dreams and goals play in the journey?
Yep. I had various dreams at various point of time, right? But the one which survived the max is this cloth bag dream. Okay. Uh, so basically, it is you. We. Uh, I when we started, we wanted this as an idea. We wanted cloth bag to be promoted as an idea, But I wanted this whole idea of why a cloth bag, right? Right. How it is making you think for the planet, how it is making you act for the planet. Okay, that was the functional thing, right? Bag is just a product around it, right? So that particular concept, my dream was, how can I actually make this idea, how can I actually make a lot of people move towards the planet? Okay, how can I make more people act for the planet, to phrase it right? How can I make more people act for the planet? That was the dream I continue to have, right? So 7 years back, it was just one man's dream. I mean, like me and my wife. So it was one young couple's dream, right? But I think we kept hanging. We kept to it. We kept to it, and despite whatever challenges could happen, we kept to it, and we were consistent in doing it. Consistent in working on that particular idea. See, 7 years down the line, if you see the same dream, now I think the whole state has that. Right. Recently, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu has launched a campaign of Meendum Manjappai, which is actually promoting yellow bag as a daily thing across the state. Right. Now, 7 years back, if we actually, I would say I had the dream, right? Everybody would have laughed at it, right? Because that is something which was considered as a yellow colored cloth bag was considered as something which is from the yesteryears, which is not fashionable, right? But 7 years down the line, if you see, the whole state is now campaigning for it, right? There's a whole diaspora of Tamils across the world who are working for it. Not only to Tamil Nadu, not only in Tamil Nadu. I've seen that in almost all states, right? Every state has a culture when it comes to carrying things, and we are now talking about how we can bring it back, so that one small action. How do you carry things? How do you carry things responsibly, right? A cloth bag. Okay. So I think keeping your dream alive, right, for a longer run, right, and working towards it every day, right. It cannot be something which you dream and go back to sleep, right. If you actually work towards it, and if you keep that, in our case, we kept that as our single focus, right. The reason we got out of our regular jobs and made this into made it into our own bread and butter earning thing is, it's only then we will give enough seriousness to that, right. Maybe your butter might get cut off, right, because you started something, right. Some days you will not even have bread, but still, only if you keep that as keep your dream as your full-time thing. If you are really serious about your dream, if you keep that as your full-time thing, right, then I think we are moving closer to it, right. In our case, I would see that happening.
It's so good to hear that the whole state is campaigning for yellow bags, or maybe changing the whole landscape of carrying a bag with themselves. So my next question is, in India, we never known to work in silos. We always work with and for friends, relatives, or maybe for our interests. So did any of the external factor, maybe your friends, relative, or your interest in any way influence your goal midway?
Most of them positively. I think I was lucky enough in it, right. I had no major pushbacks when it comes to my decisions on it. I was questioned, I was challenged by parents, by people in the family and friends as to why this, and would this really actually feed you, right? So and we were talking, and when we started, I was actually selling every bag at a loss, right? Because I was so into it. I said, like, if I give this at 10 rupees, more people would be interested, whereas the cost of the product was 11 rupees, 12 rupees, right? So so people had this very right way of questioning at that point, right? As to will this really sustain, will this really feed you, right? Will this really take you in a long run, right? But we evolved, right? We learned, and thanks to the support, guidance, mentoring of a lot of people, right? A lot. I mean, if I would need a whole book to write the number of people, names of the people who have contributed positively in this, right? But the biggest challenge, recently, or like ever since we began, is for me is in how do I actually balance between parenting and entrepreneurship, right? I had one child when I started, and I have two children now, right? And for all the other things in life, you can put additional resources, you can build systems, processes, and manage things somewhere, right? But being a parent, it is, you cannot do anything but only put your own time into it, right? You are the only resource available to the children, right? So I think my major challenge, which continues and which will continue to be, in balancing between parenting and entrepreneurship, which I believe is I'm learning. I'm a learner, and my children are also learning to kind of co-work with me, right? Uh, Other than that, Alonso, it's like everything else has been the people relationship. Everything has been for good for us. Right. The other thing, I have to prove that I am good for it.
Okay, so for the last question for the series would be any three tips you would like to give to any of the entrepreneurs or a student who just wanted to start his corporate life or maybe the entrepreneur's journey in the very next month or maybe in the coming years?
Maybe the first thing I would say from my own experience is perseverance, right? How actively you contribute to your idea, and how long you actually keep your idea alive and traveling with it, right? That will definitely keep you a better learner. That will definitely keep you a much better doer, and that will actually attract a lot of people who would positively contribute to me. Same, I'm just quoting this from my own experience, right? Uh, Second thing which I had to learn the tough route is time, right? How do we really manage time, right? Because an entrepreneur, on day zero, the biggest curse for an entrepreneur is he has freedom, right? Because before that, he is bonded to a company, he is bonded to a system. He has a system manages him. The day zero he becomes an entrepreneur, he feels there is nobody above him, right? I felt it, right? So freedom is an expensive gift, right? That freedom, that there is nobody above, is an expensive gift, and that actually, if until I really learned the art of managing my time, right, I was a lot more distracted, right? So I would say that entrepreneur is a very responsible freedom that you get, right? Every day counts, every minute counts. So you cannot just keep your idea and keep ideating for years, right? Action speaks, and actions would better speak if you allocate the right time for them. uh, Third would be, how do you actually, a right word for that would be, I've written down somewhere, let me figure out. Yeah, the right word for that is detached attachment. Okay, so how are you detached to the core emotion that drives you, right? uh, on the other hand, how are you so attached to be perceiving, how are you so resilient and working towards it? Because if you keep that idea to yourself, or if you feel that that is my idea, I will workly be, like, I can only do this, I can only handle this, then you're actually shutting the whole door not to contribute to your idea, right? So I've personally seen a lot of good people failing because of this particular reason, right? They feel so connected to the cause that they have taken up, and they feel that they are the only person who is who feels responsible, or who is talented to handle that. Right? Unfortunately, the world doesn't work like that. Every idea that comes on sudden day, there is 10 people at least who have already implemented that idea, right? So how do you actually keep yourself detached from that me mine kind of an idea, and how can we actually build a lot of people to participate, how can you be only the trustee of the idea, how can you only be the caregiver of that idea and not the owner of the idea, right? I think that is one significant thing that has helped me personally a lot.
I think we are grateful to have leaders like you who believe in working for the society and giving back to the community. Thanks a lot, Krishnan sir. Thanks for sparing time for the community. Your journey would definitely inspire many future leaders and definitely will be a direction for those already having some value to add in this field. It was really great having a conversation with you, and we hope to have more such future opportunities. So, with this, we come to an end of the second episode of our season. So, stay tuned.
Thank you, thanks everybody for watching till this. I'm very happy to be speaking to you in this channel today.